Welcome to Love Your Coaching. I'm Charlie, and today we're going to talk about whether there are different types of coach and different types of coaching. Simple answer is yes, of course there are, and I just really wanted to explore a little bit of this. Why is this important? For a couple of reasons. I think one, because lots of people ask us. Often when I say to people that I'm a coach, they say, "What sort of coach?" And that might be coming from a place of great knowledge because they understand that there are lots of different types of coach, or it might be coming from a place of they don't know very much, but they imagine that there's different type of coach. So that's one reason, so that we can answer that question. And the other reason, I think, is particularly for people who have moved on and they've got their first coaching qualification. Suddenly you start to have some choices, start to think, well, what am I going to be? What type of coach am I going to be? And so on. So I'm going to break this down into a few areas. The thing that I'm not talking about here is I'm not necessarily talking about coaching style. I'm not, because of course some coaches maybe are more direct, some are more challenging, some are softer and more gentle, some uh, offer long programs, some offer short programs. We'll get into all of that in further playlists, particularly when we talk about coaching skills. So this is a starter. I'm thinking about really the who you coach, perhaps the offer that we have, and the how many people we coach at a time. The who, what I think is really interesting in this is that often the title that we use as coaches defines who we work with. So I call myself an education leadership coach because most of the people I tend to coach are school leaders. So it's a nice title and it fits really well with my coachees and my market, if you like. And often it's like that. Often the title we use relates to who we're going to coach. So we might call ourselves, for example, we might call ourselves a leadership coach. We might call ourselves an executive coach. I'm not a huge fan of that language because it makes it sound a little bit elite, but people do use that language. We might say, for example, I am a teen coach, a youth coach, a children's coach. Sometimes it's implied, for example, and certainly we're seeing this on the increase, a maternity coach. We have a maternity coach in the team. Well, she works with people clearly who are going through pregnancy, birth, and then after birth. And so that doesn't name the people, but it names, I suppose, their circumstances, their situation. Neurodiversity coaches, another title we're seeing a lot at the moment. And that idea is, again, it's a target market. It's a group of people that you're going to be specialized to work with. So you can start seeing that there are ways that we define who we work with as part of understanding different types of coaches. And clearly, someone who is an education leadership coach versus someone who is a maternity coach, they will have different sets of knowledge, different sets of skills, even if we are still coaching in a very similar way. And what's probably important about all of that is that even if we're sticking to coaching, we still have an understanding of that other person's experience. We're not looking to shift to mentoring, but knowing them and knowing their experience means that we can help them better. Because what we don't want is we don't want our coachees wasting their time having to explain sort of basics of their circumstances, their experience. So that's the first thing to define, I think, that who we coach. The next thing is thinking about our coaching style. Now, those of you who know me and those of you who hopefully will get to know me will know that we are huge, huge, huge fans of non-directive coaching. And the reason we're huge fans of that is because the parameters around coaching define the coachee as a person who is creative, resourceful, and whole. And so once you're in that place, you're saying the coachee has the answers. The coachee just needs help to be able to identify their answers and their solutions. And it's a coaching relationship of that sort rather than a teaching relationship or a mentoring one or a managerial one. But although we say that, it doesn't mean we're in charge of anything. And lots of people choose to ignore that and choose to have a different style of coaching, when sometimes coaching is a bit more hybrid, a bit more blended, and it is a bit more directive. And where that works, I think, is when the title of what the coach calls themselves and their offer links to some expertise. So I call this topic-based coaching. And some examples that occur to me: one, if you're a sales coach, for example, anyone who's tried to sell anything will know sales is quite fiddly. So a sales coach probably does some very, very good coaching, but also maybe they share models, they give a bit of feedback, they do a bit of teaching around it. So that's one example. In the whole health and fitness industry, I think that's full of topic-based coaches, whether it is diet or nutrition or general well-being or exercise. Those type of coaches probably do nicely as a blend of non-directive and then supportive with materials and stuff. And I think that can work really well because the coachee knows what they're getting. And that they understand that they're signing up, for example, with a nutrition coach who's going to do some coaching, but definitely is going to use their expertise to resource them. So that's a second area, the idea of perhaps some coaching can be directive if it's got the correct label. And then the third thing to consider is how many people at a time do we coach? It's obvious, isn't it? It's either one or more than one. And there's been some interesting developments in the last 5 or 6 years in the coaching sector. Team coaching has sort of just exploded out of nowhere. Not true. People have been working on this, fiddling away in the background. But it certainly turned up just before lockdown. The International Coach Federation started doing things like writing standards for team coaching. And lots of the coach training bodies started offering certificates in team coaching, qualifications. The universities are doing it. Some of the bigger coach training companies are doing it as well. So team coaching is definitely a thing. It's difficult, it's fiddly, and I'm sure that there are great benefits. I got two of my colleagues in the team, Becky and Sue, are qualified team coaches, and they say it's really hard work. And to distinguish team coaching from working with a group of people, because there is also group coaching, team coaching is when you are working with the group on collective outcomes, on collective output. And the idea that there is something of shared value. So it might be the leadership team in an organization. It might be a team who works together. For example, let's say in a school, a department can be that type of thing. Whereas group coaching, it's coaching everyone in that room as individuals. So it might be giving them pairs activities to discuss. It might be doing silent coaching. You're throwing questions out there and each person responds to it. It might be coaching one person as a demo and everyone else watches and observes and takes away the learning from that coaching experience. So group coaching is individuals in a room working on themselves. Team coaching tends to be working on the collective mission. And then, of course, the vast majority, I think, of coaching work is one-to-one. And almost inevitably, people do like and enjoy and want to work on a one-to-one basis. Even in team coaching, there's often spin-offs, one-to-one coaching to support the people in that team. So I'm mapping out the what, the who, and the how of coaching. And it's real basics. It's 101, but I wanted to give us a few minutes to think about that. There may be a point when you think this is really useful. I need to explore this. And probably the first point is either before you start any training, I would like to be a wellness coach, so I'll go and find my wellness coaching course, or after you've done your first bit of standard coach training. I see this quite often. People have done coach training with us, they've earned their qualification, and when they're asking the what next question, they find actually they want to go down a pathway. They want to work with this group of people, or they want to work in that type of way. So that's a good time to think about it and talk about it. What about you? Where are you at in this journey? Where are you at in your thinking about different types of coaching? Be really interesting to hear. So please do put comments below. And my marketing people would say I should be saying right now, don't forget to subscribe, because that will help the channel, let more people see it. So I'll try and remember to say that occasionally. Folks, have a good day. Happy coaching. See you next time.